Hey, Coach Barrett here from Metrics. Hey, one of the things I wanted to share with you and talk to you about is one of the things I do, which is bike fitting. So I've been doing it a while, and I use quite a bit of specialized tools, both some high-tech ones and some not so high-tech ones. But for me, I think the whole process and the things I do and the equipment I use is pretty fascinating. So I want to share with you and show you a little bit what I do and a little bit of how I go about doing it. So let's follow me a little bit. And I gotta say, I feel a little bit like Mr. Rogers when I do this stuff. So maybe I should be putting on my red cardigan to go through this process. I'm gonna take you through Coach Barrett's neighborhood. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. You know, I bet you people under 30 probably thinking, yeah, this guy's a lunatic. But I was kind of thinking, maybe that's a problem with millennials. They didn't grow up watching Mr. Rogers. You know what, Mr. Rogers wouldn't be taking a selfie. Mr. Rogers wouldn't do Snapchat. But anyway, that's a separate issue. First step, first station, the biosize. What I use this for is to get a sense of what your inseam and torso and arm are. And this is just another set of data and information that's going to come up later on. So if I'm fitting somebody and I remember that they have a longer torso, I'm going to fit them a little bit differently than if they have a shorter torso. For me, I got long inseam, short torso, long arms. And so the way I would fit myself would be different from someone who has short inseam, longer torso, shorter arms. It's about weight distribution. So it's just, in and of itself, it's not critical, but it's just one little layer of additional knowledge and information that I'll be using later on. So that leads us to the next step. Come up with me. The assessment. What I'm going to have you do is I'm going to have you lay on your back, if you being the subject or the client, I'm going to have you lay on your back here with your feet out, hanging off the edge. And first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to be assessing for leg length difference, both functional or structural. So I'll be looking at you both prone and as you sit up. Other things I'll be looking for is what is your level of hamstring flexibility, what is your level of hip range of motion. These are things that are critical or at least important possible limiters when it comes to you being on the bike and you being able to hold a certain position. So I go through that. The next one is, or next step is, the evaluating your arch and your arches, your foot. Do you have low arches? Do you pronate? Do you have high arches? Do you supinate? Another thing I look for that's very, very critical is what your gait is. Are you a little bit externally rotated? Do you have a straight gait? Are you a little bit pigeon-toed? These are things that will help me gauge how I'm going to set up your cleats, how I'm going to rotate those cleats to accommodate your natural gait. I'll be looking at your arches too, just to see if you pronate a little bit. That's going to influence your pedal stroke, create some instability, which leads me to the next and final assessment, my favorite one, the hardest one, the most challenging one of all, the single leg squat assessment, or we can call it pistol squat. You can also call it pistol squat. So I'm going to demonstrate, and my left side seems to be better because I always demonstrate with my left side, so I'm getting a lot of practice doing this. So we're just going to balance and see how low we can go, and see if there's instability at the foot ankle, see if we have a knee valgus, etc. And again, these are things that are going to help me evaluate your level of function before we even get on the bike. So sometimes it takes about a good 30 minutes, 45 minutes of me interviewing you, doing these assessments before you're even doing a scan. So it's a real key and critical part of the whole process, and I think you need to emphasize the word process because it is a process. So next up, I'll show you something different. Okay, next up. This is the purely custom. It's a fit bike. What it does basically allows me to fit somebody without the need to actually have them on a bike. So I use it primarily for two applications. One of my favorite fits is what I call the bike finder fit. So if someone's trying to determine what bike they should get, primarily what size they should get, what configuration they should get, what manufacturer, whether they want an endurance bike, race bike, all that, I find the most effective ways to do that is to fit them here first. And so I go to the whole fit system, the whole fit protocol, except instead of having them on a bike, I have them on this. And we can move this independently, these handlebars and the saddle up, down, fore, aft, along the X and the Y coordinates, and fine tune that fit and get that fit perfected, optimized, and then I can use these coordinates down here. We have the X coordinates, we have the Y coordinates, and I can use that little math calculator I have to then determine exactly the bike they need, exactly the size they need, exactly the stem configuration they need, high, low, long, short, number of spacers, all down to the millimeter. It's a fun process. I love that process because it is, there's a certain sense of finality to it. There's no fuzziness. You know exactly what you want. Then it's just a math problem. So the second thing I use this for is for tri-fits. So adjusting an aero bar on an existing tri-bike during a fit is pretty much impossible, time consuming. So what I usually do is I'll take their coordinates from their existing tri-bike, position them on this, model their fit here by making adjustments, and then transfer those coordinates back over to the bike. Sometimes it involves them leaving the bike, we gotta rewire, recable, change the aero bar, etc. But at least we know what you need because we've done it here on this machine. So this is a purely custom. It is a manually operated one. I used to have the first generation DFU. That thing was great. It was motorized, computer controlled, mouse click. I could kind of set the coordinates and save them. It's really slick. The thing would just go bzzz, bzzz, and really slick, but the software was just really buggy. It would crash all the time, so I had to get rid of it. So Guru, they bought the assets. They came up with a really new, improved DFU. The thing was amazing. It was like rotate up, do all kinds of stuff, still electric motors, the whole shebang. And they called me all the time, wanted me to buy that thing, but my response every time was the same, like $36,000? Nah, I'm good. So anyway, manual control is real simple. I use a power drill to kind of move things up and down, like so. Love this thing. And I use a hand crank to move it back and forth. I've got to write down coordinates with a pen and paper, a little bit low tech, but it's reliable and foolproof and it works. So that's this guy. Essential bit of machinery for me. It serves a very specific purpose. So, okay, we're finally getting to the real meat of what I do as a bike fitter. Maybe the most important or critical piece of equipment that I use for my craft, and that's the motion capture system. This one is by Retool. There's a few others. I think Shimano's going to introduce one, but that kind of panned out a little bit, fizzled out. But it is a motion capture system. But the way I explain to clients, if you've ever seen how they make those Pixar movies in Hollywood, they got the guy in the sound lots, got the suit with little dots all over him. It's the same thing. It's motion capture. So what it does, it's basically you apply these dots, these little infrared lights that this tracker picks up. So what happens, we have these infrared dots or lights we put on key parts of our body, mostly on the joints, and it's creating a segment between those 2 points, the 2 dots. And so when the segments intersect, it's going to create an angle. And really it's the angles and the distances that I use to get the raw data that helps me interpret that subject's position on the bike. So it is basically there's a whole lot of information. Not all of it is relevant as some, but it gives me a whole ream of data that I use to give me a better picture, an overall picture of that person on the bike and what they're actually doing. Because I measure them while they're moving, while they're pedaling under different loads. So there's a big difference between this, a motion capture system, versus a static fit, different thing. So I find this is an indispensable tool in my arsenal of fit equipment. So it's and I do a lot of static fits too. I do a basic fit, and I get pretty good results with that. But if I had a choice, would I use this motion capture system versus a static fit, even though it's kind of a pain sometimes to set up and put all the dots and the sensors on? Yes, every time. I think it really does make a difference. It really does give me better information. That's really all that it is, just giving you information. I think some people have some misconceptions about retool or motion capture, that somehow you're fitting just the numbers and fitting is more complicated than that. Well, yeah, of course, but I'm not necessarily fitting to the numbers that are normally the ranges, but I am taking them into consideration. But it's still up to me to take that data, take that information, and find the signal through the noise. So that's really what the retool does, is give you a lot of information that I use to work with, and I find it helps me greatly if I'm finding the most precise way, the most in-depth way to fit a personal bike. So let's go to the next. We've talked about the high-tech tools. That retooler thing, that thing over there, that costs $10,000. That Purely Custom over there costs $12,000. But I'm going to tell you about some of my most precious and indispensable tools that I use. The ones I can't do without. Number one is my metric tape measure. You realize how hard it is to find metric tape measures? You can't just go to a local Home Depot or Lowe's and just pick up a metric tape measure. They don't really have them. They have tons of standard ones. So metric ones are a little bit hard to find. So I was doing some furniture shopping. I had a basket full of these tape measures in there. It's like, man, you got metric tape measures? Can I buy one of these? I'm like, for samples, take one. So I took 3. Sorry, Furniture America. I'll give you a plug for letting me steal your tape measures. So this one, critical, love this. My most prized possession. My $15 Harbor Freight digital caliper. I've had this thing for 6 years. I've never changed the battery. I can't kill it. It never dies. I throw it on the ground. It still works. I go pick it up. Sometimes it doesn't display. I just go, and it starts working like a champ. This is the one thing, my most prized possessions of fitters, my Harbor Freight digital caliper. So low-tech tools, for me, just as important as the high-tech ones. It's just how you use the tools. So anyway, hope you enjoyed that. Tune in. We'll talk about some more stuff too. Anyway, take care.